Look at how to install MySQL database in Docker and how to use it. So first of all, we need to install Docker in our machine. You can install Docker command line, or you can also install Docker desktop. I'm on Mac. If you're on Windows, you can also install Docker desktop on your Windows. The process are pretty much the same. For Mac, you have to go to this website here. It's a Docker docs right up here, and then you'll see here install Docker desktop on Mac. The nice thing about Docker desktop, it gives you this nice user interface where you don't have to really use terminal if you don't want to, but you will still be able to do pretty much everything from the terminal if you prefer the terminal. For this video, I'm going to install Docker desktop, and I will show you a couple things on Docker desktop and also a few more things in terminal. So first thing first, go ahead and install here. I have already installed it, so I'm going to open it up, my Docker desktop. So when I open up my Docker desktop here, let me pull up in this screen. This is how it looks like. This is Docker desktop. As you see, there are different tabs here: containers, images, volumes, and there's some environment, learning center. So for the images, right now I do not have any images. You can install images from Docker Hub. Here it will requiring you to sign in, but we're gonna use a command line, and then we'll kind of show you how to install MySQL image, MySQL Docker image in your machine. Google, I'm just gonna do MySQL Docker image Docker Hub. So if you go there, the very first link right here, this is again, this is Docker Hub, but in our case it's the Docker MySQL Docker image. So commands is right here, Docker pull MySQL. This will give you the MySQL image. So let's go to our command line. Like I said, we're going to be using command line, but you could also use Docker desktop if you don't want to use command line. So here's my command line. I already installed the Docker desktop. So when you install Docker desktop, Docker command is also installed in your machine. So first thing we can do is check if the Docker is installed or not. Okay, it gives me the version 2406. That means Docker is installed in this machine. So we have Docker installed. We know how to get the MySQL Docker image. So let's go ahead and run the command to get the MySQL Docker image. So before doing that, I'll show you here in Docker desktop. Right now, if you look at the images, there's no images. As soon as we install MySQL Docker image, you will see that image up in our Docker desktop. So let's do that. Docker pull MySQL. So that is the command there. If you run it, all right, it is pulling that image from Docker Hub. It's going to take a minute, and as soon as it's complete, we're going to head over to our Docker. There you go, it's completed. We're going to head over to our Docker desktop, and you will see that image right here. There you go. So there's an image called MySQL, and that's the one we installed. You could build a container out of this image and run it. One way to do that would be you can click run here, and then it will give you this nice user interface where you can pick the port, and then the port for the this is the port for Docker, and then the port for your local machine, and then another thing like the volumes and then environment variable. So you can do that, create container, MySQL container off of that MySQL image right from the Docker desktop, or you can also use command line. I'm going to show you how to use command line, but as you see, you could do it from here as well if you want to. So let's head over to command line, and then we're going to basically use the command line. One thing before doing that, one thing I want to show you is that since you already installed pulled MySQL image, you can look at all the image you have, Docker image you have in your machine with this command docker image ls, and right now it says I got a MySQL Docker image right here, right? That's nice thing here. And let's go ahead, since we already have the Docker image. Next thing we can do is we can run container out of that image. And like I said, when we do that, we're going to have to provide name and if there's any environment variable that is needed for us to run that MySQL Docker image. So I'm going to copy the command and then quickly run it here. I'll show you guys right here how to do that. So this is the command. Basically, I pasted here. What is this command doing is docker run. What docker run will do, it will build the container and also runs it. And then dash name basically means we are giving the name. I am giving the name MySQL container from terminal. That's it's too long name, so I'm going to change that. MySQL. Just going to say MySQL container. All right, and dash E means environment variable. So this is MySQL root password is our environment variable, and I'm passing root dash password for that. And the username is going to be root in this case. And the dash D just means run this container in the background. And then we have MySQL is obviously our image name and tag. Here in this tag, you can pass in the version of MySQL you want to run. So I'm just going to do 8.2.0 and enter. So what happened here is it was trying to find if I already have MySQL 8.2.0 locally installed, and it wasn't able to find it. So it went to Docker Hub and pulled downloaded newer images for MySQL 8.2.0. So now we have a container created and ran off of our image. So let's go back, and if you want to look at all the container, you can just run the command container ls. So when you do that, you see here container ID, we got the ID, that's the image. Basically MySQL container is the name, 32 seconds ago, status, all that, right? You can also do docker ps, and it will also show you. Let's clear this here. See, docker ps will show you the container that's running. Also docker container ls will also show you the container there. So let's go back to our Docker desktop, and we can see our container there. So this is our so now as you see, we have actually two images, because the first images we call that was basically latest, and then whenever we passed in with the tag 8.2.0, it had to go to Docker Hub and pull the image for 8.2.0. So we have the image for 8.2.0. Now going back to container here, we also have the container here, as you see, and you will see the status running. That's the image, and the name of the container is basically what we gave was MySQL dash container. It is running right now. It was 2 minutes ago that was created. Those sort of stuff. You can also stop container from here by just stop button. You can also delete it from here in the interface. Same thing with the images. You can delete those images, run the container out of those images, and all sort of stuff here. So we're going to use command line again to stop and start the container. So let's see, right now our container is running. I'm going to do this docker stop, and I'm going to pass in the name of my container and see what happens. All right, our container should be stopped at this point. Let's pull up here container, and is it running? Exited. It's not running anymore, so that's good. Another thing I was going to show you here is that in Docker desktop, when you click your container here, it will give you this the view which has like a logs, and this is the log for your container. Has this inspect, bind mounts, execute. So here you can directly execute your command against your container. Our container is not running right now, so you can't really do that. Files, it will, the files that's in the container, and all the statistics. Obviously container isn't running, so you can't see it. Let's go ahead and run the container and we'll see this log moving. So I'm going to run the container here real quick. So same command, if I go up and just type it, instead of stop, I'm going to type it start, and this should run our container. So going back, as you see, this is the log generated when we ran our container. Inspect, we want to see execute. So it also gives you this nice terminal which you can run. This is the terminal in your container. So if you have to do something in your container, let's say you have to run some command, this is what you can use. Obviously there's statistics, you can also see this. So Docker Desktop is pretty useful in order to see those information, but again, you can also do pretty much the same from terminal if you like it. So since we have this Docker running, and this is, at this point we already have our MySQL Docker installed, the image installed, and then we also created a container for our MySQL database, and it is running right now, so which is really good. Now next thing we're going to do, since we already have those installed and running, next thing we'll try to get into our container, and once we get into our container, MySQL command, and which we can run to connect to our database, run some query, and do the things that we need to do. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna run that execute command here. So first thing first, here is our Docker. Basically command is execute it, and then we have MySQL. I think we just call it MySQL container, and then you can say here I want to run the bash command. So when you do that, as you see how the terminal changed from being my local to bash 4.4, so which is good. Let's clear that. Oh, you can't, because I'm in the container. So since we already have the bash there, we can do pwd to see where I am, and this is it tells me I'm at the root because I just right now logged into to my container. I can also exit. When I do exit, I'm out of the container. Let me clear here. So that's how you log into container, and also if you want to exit, you can. There's a whole lot of command that you can use against your container. Those are all the Docker commands. So you can start, stop, log into your container. You can also look at the log, Docker logs, MySQL container. There you go. So the command is Docker logs MySQL dash container. Basically pulls up the log, and this is the same log you see in right here in our Docker desktop. So it's the same log. You can also pull in from the terminal, or if you don't want to pull in from terminal, you can directly use it from Docker desktop. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to log into container, and we're going to use, since this is our MySQL database container, we're going to log into the container, and then we're going to use our MySQL command to basically connect to our database in there. So I'm going to paste the command here real quick. Here again, I'm going to explain this command. Docker execute, we're calling it basically Docker MySQL container here. This is Docker execute MySQL container, and this is the MySQL command. -u is username, -p is password. It's going to prompt me for entering password, and then I'm going to enter the password. As you remember, whenever we created this Docker container, we passed in password as one of our environment variable. and you want to enter the same password here. All right, I entered the password, and I'm finally inside my Docker container, MySQL container, and then I'm also using MySQL command here. Now here you can run things that you could do with the database. So first thing I'm going to run would be a show database. So this is going to show me all the database that I have right now. Well, I do not have any database. I haven't added any database, so these are just the default that comes with the MySQL. And the next thing I can run is I can create database. So let me do that. Create database, and I'm going to call it learn underscore MySQL. All right, okay, so let's see. Let's run the show database again. We just created a database called learn MySQL. As you can see, there is a learn MySQL. This is the database we just created. Next thing you can do, since we created learn MySQL database, we're going to start using that learn MySQL database. So the commands are pretty simple. Use learn underscore MySQL. So the result says database change. So now we're using learn MySQL database. First thing we're going to do, we can create table here. You know, we can update table, all sort of things. So let's try to create table here. I'm going to do create table. Let's say we're trying to build a database for a university, and we're trying to create table which will hold all the departments in that university. So let's do that. Call it departments. Start with that, and then let's say our first column is ID. It is integer, not null, auto increment, right? Auto increment basically means as we enter, it's going to keep increasing by 1. Name, obviously name of the department. It is going to be worker, say 255 at most, and then also not null. All the department has to have name. I'm going to say primary key is, as we can guess, ID, and then I'm going to say names are going to be unique. So I'm going to create a constraint here. Just call it unique name, and then use that unique name here. And then this will be all for now. So here basically what we did is we created a table called department. Departments has an ID, name, and the ID is primary key. It's gonna keep increasing, auto increment, and the name is the name of the department. It cannot be null. It has to have value, and it has to be unique. So let me hit enter. So it says query OK, 0 row affected, nothing, no error. That means the table has been created. So let me run the command show tables, and I can see I have departments table. So you can run MySQL command to do all this database operation, like you know, query, update, all sort of stuff. But this will get really complicated to do that in command line, in terminal. So next thing what we're gonna do, we're gonna be using MySQL Workbench. For that, we're going to install MySQL Workbench. We're going to connect our Docker database container, you know, MySQL container from our MySQL Workbench, and we're going to run our query from MySQL Workbench. Because as you see, just running queries from terminal gets complicated. So let's clean this up for now. Let me drop the table that I just created. Because we're going to start very clean from MySQL Workbench. I just dropped that table that I created. I'm also going to drop the database that I created. It is learn underscore MySQL. So database, it shouldn't be here anymore. And let's see. All right, no database. So that is all for this video. So in this video, what we did is basically we install the Docker desktop in our machine. I'm on Mac, so I installed it on a Mac. You could also do it on Windows. We created, we pulled the MySQL Docker image from Docker Hub. We created a MySQL container, out of that MySQL Docker image. We ran the container, we logged into container, we used MySQL command inside the container in order for us to talk to the container database. We created a database, we created a table, and those sort of stuff. So next thing, we're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to be using MySQL Workbench, which has a really nice UI, instead of using the terminal. And then we're going to connect to our Docker MySQL container database from our basically MySQL Workbench. So we'll see you in that next video. Until then, happy learning.